and welcome Photoshop Senior Edition, folks. I'm pretty excited about today's lesson because we're going to work on some things that I really enjoy doing. First time I've been challenged in a while to come up with some things like, let's just say, some clouds like these. Otherwise, a drab sky until you add some clouds and some color. There actually is some color in this image as well, in the clouds. Then we're going to work on making some fire, just to show you how to make fire. And we're going to start with turning the shoreline into flames, and then we're just going to burn the whole place down, basically. Then we're going to come over and work on our deer image, and she's just running through the woods, obviously to get away from me, as a lot of females do. And this particular image, we're going to do several things. For one, we're going to show some speed and make this the fastest deer in the world. So I'll just show you real quick the beginning of making a fast deer, faster yet, and super fast deer. Then we're going to actually work on putting some fog into the image. I'll turn those off and show you some fog. And we're going to learn how to control the fog, be able to turn it down and up and so forth, add more fog, reduce the fog, and so forth. Then we're going to cap that off by turning the scene into a snowy, wintry scene. And so you see the transformation that we've made with several of these things in Photoshop. And let's get started creating these, okay? Okay, gang, let's get started with this. You notice I've got two layers over here, fire and clouds, and that's what I just showed you a few minutes ago, what I already created. I'm leaving those there just to keep me on track, basically, to remind me where I want to go with this particular image. So if you want to fill your screen with the image, just do a Control-0, and that will happen. And let me just, since that popped on, I want to show you. I had to reset my preferences, so I've got things are going on a little bit differently than norm. I've got to turn some things on and some things off. But when I did the Control-0, I got these guides that popped up, and I don't want those. They just get in my way. If I were doing web work, especially, that would be great right now. It does serve a fantastic purpose, but not for this. So if you don't like that being on, just go up to View and down to Show and turn off the Smart Guides. Now when I do a Control-0, it doesn't come on, or Control-. So if that gets in your way, just know that you can go to View and Show and uncheck Smart Guides. Okay? Okay, I'm going to do a exact copy of the background layer because I don't want to just mess with this one right now. So I'm just going to do a Control-J. And remember, we can also hold down the Alt key, slide it, it makes another copy, and then you just have to drag it in place. But we don't need that one, so I'm just going to throw that one away. Okay. Now, never, never, never work on clouds on top of this image, or any image for that matter. Click on New Layer icon over here by the little trash can icon. Looks like a curled up page, corner curl page. And we're going to paint our clouds. There's no automatic tool to do this. We're going to paint it. It's not that hard. You can press B for brush, B as in boy, and turn on your brush. And we need a really big brush. So right and left bracket key control the size of your brush. We need one not quite, maybe around there. Make sure that black and white are your default colors. And I'm going to switch my toolbar. It's running the length right now, but you can't see my color picker. Again, this because my prefs were changed. I can go up here and double click that and get a side by side. Now you see my colors are black and white and brown, and I just want default colors. So I press the letter D as in dog and get black over white. And if I want white on top, which I do, I can toggle the colors, the foreground and the background, by just pressing the letter X as in X-ray, and we can have white on top. All right, we've got a new layer, got a paintbrush, got white turned on. However, the opacity is 100%. So that needs to go way down here. Let's try it around 10. And sometimes 10 is a bit much. Okay, so we're just going to stroke a little bit in there. Now make sure, let's click on the brush. Right now we've got hardness in there, so let's turn it all the way off of hardness so the edges are nice and soft. So I'm just freehand painting by clicking. Each time I do a little stroke and you see paint, it's another click. I don't click and just paint around. I click and just drop a little paint, click over here, and every time I make clouds, they're different. Okay, but you'll see as you build up the white in it or leave some of it transparent, it will start looking like clouds. This one already does. Let's put a white area up in here, whiter area. I'm going to make the brush smaller and just click like that. Maybe one in here as well. Paint that down a little bit more. So you just get a little creative, and right now it looks a whole lot less like brush or a cloud. I realize it's okay. We're just going to paint a little bit. For now, you can just watch me if you want to. Remember, this is on its own layer, so you're really not going to mess much up. Okay, I'm going to go to a bigger brush again and just paint some more. And I really need to turn this back even a little bit more. Around 6 is what I really prefer. So we just make some nice soft areas. And obviously this is a pretty good size cloud formation, at least right now it is. And we're going to take some of this out of the screen area, build it up, and right here I'm just going to go ahead and click several times to make that a little wider. Same thing down here, click 3 times there, make it soft there, soft in there. Alright, hopefully you can see what's happening. The cloud is building. I'm going to make my brush smaller again and make a little wider area right in here. And let's make this yet a little wider up there. So we're building depth in the images, basically what this boils down to. And now, if I want to, there's a couple of things I can do, but we probably ought to go ahead and put a mask on this. So right down here, what I always call the square donut, it's a square with the hole in the middle. That puts a mask on layer 1. I'm just going to double click this and leave the number 1 and call this clouds. So now I need to make sure that I'm on my mask, so I click off of the cloud cluster that I have here and click on the mask because I want to start reducing some of this. So I come in here and I just start painting, make sure black is on top over here, and I can start painting that. And this also helps to build some depth. And as you change your brush a little bit, it will actually help you build the clouds. And that's the beauty of a mask, allowing you to come in. If you go too far, you just switch back to black or white, I'm sorry, and you bring those clouds back in again, whatever you want to bring back in. Again, we're going to press X, and I'll show you real quick. I can get rid of a lot of that real quickly, which is counterproductive. Control Alt Z or Control Z, and I'm just going to paint little at a time. That's the key. Now the great thing, you say, well, this is such a gigantic pain, why would we ever want to use this? Well, once you have a set of clouds that you like, you can start using that same set of clouds in other images. Doesn't have to just be in one image that these clouds happen to be in. You can remember this is on its own layer, so I can do a Control T right now and turn that around, or vertical, whatever I want to do with it. And I can also Control T it and stretch it out, make it smaller. Whatever. Hold Shift, and because it's nice and soft edges, so we can still make it look different very, very quickly if we put it in another image. So I'm going to keep tweaking this. I'm trying to reduce anything looking exactly the same, or even close to being the same. And as you erase some of that stuff, notice how it takes on darker look because it's mixing more of the background in between the different areas as you do this. And now we can go back on the image and again paint with white. So I press X and I can just go in here and soften that out a little bit. I can come up here and make this a hotter area by clicking several times. Now instead of doing that, I'm going to just do Control Alt Z a couple of times and bring that down to there, maybe one more time. I can come over here. Let's create a new layer, and I'm going to call this Clouds 2. This way I can control every cloud or set of clouds that I choose to. And we'll just put a cloud right in here. Now, obviously it's not a pretty one yet. I just clicked a couple of times to make that more white. And we'll say, let's do this. Let's build it up a little bit with some real white. If we want to spread that out a little bit, we can go to Filter, Blur, and down to Motion Blur. You see what happened instantly to that? We can control how much blur hits that, and you see what it does to the image. We can go back over here, run that same filter on all of that, smooth that way out if we want to. I'm going to undo that. Now I'm going to create a mask for this set of clouds, so the square donut, and I'm going to paint with black, and I'm not actually painting black in the image, remember, it's black on the mask, which is letting the background show through. Make this much smaller. So that cloud's not looking too bad. Let's make another set of clouds. So clouds 3. And let's paint it up here. Just zigzagging a little bit and branch that out. And let's put some white here. So I'm just multiple clicking to build some depth. Again, we can run the blur on it if we want to. Motion blur on that. Let's just add to this. And I'm going to switch to black. Now, I'm painting right on the layer. So I'm actually painting on that layer with black. Not good. So Control-Alt-Z to get rid of that, and we need a mask. So we click down here on the square donut. Now make sure it's the part that's highlighted. And now with black on, we can paint and we can make it bigger brush here. Let's see here. I'm going to switch back to white, come back down here. I don't know if you noticed or not, but I was painting, instead of painting white for clouds, I was painting white on my mask, which is not where I wanted it. So you got to really pay attention, make sure you're working on the actual layer that has the clouds you want to add and not the mask. So again, I need to paint with white, so switch to X. And I'm going to paint multiple clicks. You probably can hear some of the clicking. Make the brush bigger, and I'll fill some of this in with white. Switch back to black and get rid of some of this stuff. Build that depth is basically what it's all about. See, I'm doing it again. Control-Z. I'm painting with actual black on the image. Got to be on the mask. Paint with black. Sometimes I get a little too focused on the painting and lose track of where I am on the layers. And the great thing about it is, these are on their own layer. I can drop the opacity of this and say, I like that better. Let's go down to this one. Yeah, this one maybe looks a little bit better that way too. And if I click on that mask, maybe I ought to get rid of some of this here. Just kind of smooth that out. Let's make that a little bit bigger. And maybe that looks okay. So let's turn these three off. See, our clouds are looking pretty good at this point. And let's just put a couple of little ones in. So let's go back up here to the top of these clouds. We're going to click on the new layer icon again. This time, painting with white, smaller. So we'll just put a little puffy there. We don't have to have a bunch of them. I'm going to put a little extra white in this one with a smaller brush. About a little white on this one here at the edge. And maybe on that one. And we'll switch the size of that. Okay, again, these are on their own layer. They don't look too great right now. Layer mask, square donut, whatever you want to call it. We're going to paint with the black. And we just we can move this up a little bit more. If you use a very big brush, a lot of times it helps. You just really have to watch the opacity when you do. And let's change the opacity of these clouds. So I'm going to get rid of a little bit more on that. This one. I don't really like that one there, so I'm going to turn this to black. So I press X, actually black. Make that a little bit bigger. Run this up to 100%. Let's get rid of that one. I think we've got some pretty good balance going. Now these are the latest little clouds, not much to them. We need to put a little white in that one maybe over there. That was a lot because that was on 100%. Back down here. Make that a little bit smaller. Yeah, I want to run a little soft white area there. There we go. Now we're cooking. Turn these others back on. Now, let's say we're happy as we can be. Although I'm not. I'm never totally happy. I'm gonna just put a little booger back in here. Make my brush smaller. Maybe a couple of little clouds in there. Clicking a few extra times. I love it, the fact that we can, with the layer mask, we can just go in there and anytime we want to and add or take away from this. And let's go to the mask, change it to black. Start getting rid of some of this. I'm gonna up the opacity just a little bit. I'm painting with white. So X. Go around those lines with a bigger brush. All right, let's turn them all off and all back on. You see how I'm doing that? I hope you can just click on one eyeball and drag it down, let go. Click on one, drag it up to turn them on. So if we want to reduce that cloud right there, let's just turn on a bigger brush or right bracket key here. And let's just subdue this a little bit. I like the white right here, so I'm going to switch to white and make this a little whiter coming down. Got to be on the image itself. Just add some little points, and again, it helps you to add those little points of extra white with a smaller brush sometimes. Now then, let's go in there with black on the mask. And let's just change the opacity back low again. This gives us a chance to do some painting in Photoshop this way, I think. Make my brush a little bigger. And a little bigger, yeah. Let's diminish that a little bit there. At 6%, you're really getting just a little bit at a time. Let's move it up a little bit more. Kind of finish that off. All right. You can see, I think, the depth that's there, and obviously we could spend a lot more time working on these. I'm going to work on these a little bit more. Turn on that mask. Make that one a little less obvious. Subdue that. These little ones that way will kind of go back into the background a little bit more. Just kind of brush them and push them a little bit. Now let's turn the others back on. And I'm okay with most of this. Alright, what I'm going to do now that I'm pretty happy with it, I'm going to add some color in the clouds. Now, you should be able to see there's a little bit of purpley color coming through the clouds right now. But if you look at the image, there is purple in there anyway, and that's what we're seeing show through the clouds. So I'm going to kind of counteract that a little bit with some different color. And I always like to add a little color anyway, especially if it's maybe closer to sundown. So I'm going to click the new layer icon, and I'm going to turn on some nice orangey dusk-like color here. And I'm going to go up here with the opacity pretty low, around 6 again, and I'm just going to paint a little bit in here and there, maybe some over there. And here's the trick. I want to make this just like a giant bean takes powdered color in their hand and just cups it and then blows that color into the clouds. Okay, that's what this color is supposed to look like. And the way we make it poof like that is with the motion blur. So we go to filter, blur, motion blur, and you notice it's already got a pretty good size blur on it. So this is go down. This is the way it was when I just painted it in. So now as we take it up, are we on the right layer? Yes, we are. Yep. Okay. Sorry. Blur, motion blur. Let's take it up. Now it's really scattered, especially over here. You can see a little hint of it there. That's not bad right there. Got a little telltale sign of it there and there. And now some right down there. So we can kind of finish that up if we think that's a little too much. Again, with the square donut. Put that mask over here, paint with black on the mask, and we can kind of tweak that, not have so much of it in there. It's up to us. I kind of like that over there, so I'm going to press X and just bring that back a little bit. Alright, so then I'm going to create another layer on top of this one and maybe put some red in. So let's click over here and let's go to a nice deep dark red. And I didn't actually, I clicked on group, so let's throw that away. Alright, new layer icon. So this is where we're going to paint some red. So let's make this one a little bit smaller brush. Here's some, let's put some there, there, a little bit smaller there. Now this is pretty heavy, so we'll see what we get. We'll try a little bit right there. Really should have painted this in way down here, but let's see what happens. Let's go to filter, blur, and motion blur, and you saw it take off. I think it blurred pretty good already. There we go. So let's just change the direction that blurs a little bit. Click OK. Now we're going to put a mask on it, and we're going to paint with black. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Let's turn this up and just blend that in a little bit over here. And let's see what that, let's kill some of that right there and there. This is really colorful up here. Well, it's the thing is, you know, when you do this, it's going to be your artwork. You can have as much of the color in there as you want, or as little. You don't have to put any color in them at all. I just like to make my sky a little more interesting. And obviously we can totally control it with these two layers. We can go back here and take that down a little bit further. So let's turn all of this stuff off real quick. Let's just go over here to, see, I've lost my history. Let's go down to history. And let's just go up here and turn on the original. Let me bring this down here. And let's click on the original. There it is. And we go to the bottom of our history states. And that's what we did to it. So I think you can see we've made a huge difference in that regard, right? All right. Now we're going to set the shoreline on fire, basically, which I think is kind of fun. So what we're going to do is create a path, and the path tool right here, this little ink pen, the old-fashioned pen right there, we can click and just start over here at the far left and go all the way over to the right. Let's go to the layers here real quick. Let's create a new layer. So let's click on the new layer icon. This is going to be Fire 1. Alright, so we've got our path. You have to have a path to lay down fire. You can have a small path, a long path, whatever. Nonetheless, must have a path. Okay, so we're going to go up to Filter, down to Render, and Flame. Now we're going to get all kinds of options here to choose from. Number one, I like to have randomness, and it takes, this is a pretty good size portion of the program. This takes a little power to run this. So you can control how high the flames go right here on this. And let's just go for something right around in there. And then you can control the width of it, make it much thicker. That's up to you. I'm going to go with something like that. You can angle it, intervals, or you'll see here, get some gaps going in it, or solid. A little bit of an interval, I think, helps. Now there's also flame type up here, and you can have multiple flames along the path, one flame along the path, and so forth. So I think this defaulted to multiple flames one direction, and we're just going to go with that. You can change this from quality medium, low, high, fine. I'm just going to leave it on medium and click OK. And again, it takes a few minutes for this to run. And then we're going to get our flames that go right down that path. There we go. So they follow the path just the way we want it to. Now, we've created or asked for it. It would have made a straight line with no flames underneath. But I didn't choose to do that, so we're going to have to whack that off. I wanted the flames to be more full like this. We could have, like I said, we could have chopped that all off in the flame maker, but again, we're going to employ a layer mask so we can paint with the paintbrush. This time at 100%, we're going to go across that line and wipe that stuff out. Let's see, make sure our brush is not completely hard. I'm going to change that to 20%, and I'm going to make this smaller, and I'm going to click over here one time, go to this other side, keep the top of my brush right lined up like that, and hold down the shift key and click, and then I can just paint this other stuff out. I can use a bigger brush if I want to get it faster, but you see our shoreline now is engulfed. Now, there are several things that we can do with our fire now that it's on its own layer. For one thing, we can copy that and make multiple layers. So if I do a Control J, it thickens up the fire, but I'm going to press the Move tool and I can bring this down, and I'll do a Control. Let's get rid of the path first. That's kind of messing with us. So we need to go up to Window and down to Paths and throw this thing away. Just click the trash can. Yes, we don't want the path anymore, but thank you. And now we can move this wherever we want to, and we can do a Control T and make it bigger. And let's do a Control 0 so we can see the bottom of this. We can drag that down. So now our boat is basically trapped in the middle of flames. Kind of a hostile harbor to move into. Now, if I want to, since I've got a mask on, let's turn this one off for a few minutes. Let's click on this mask and go up here to where the boat is. And I think our shoreline, let's just see here, yeah, probably needed to make that less smooth. When I masked this a while ago with the brush, probably need to make that a little harder, because if you look here, whoops, Control Z that, if you look, this line here is really, really soft. That's okay. What we want to do is bring back the sail that's on this boat. So I'm just painting. I don't really know where the sail is. I'm just painting the fire in a general area here. Oh, now I see the outline of the sail. And I'm going to click right here and come down here and shift click. And I'm going to go outside to paint the fire back in with white. Make my brush smaller. Come down that edge. Over here, the same thing. I'll click here, shift click down there, click here, and shift click up there. Need some of the boat to show here, so I'll press X to hide the flame there. Okay, X again to change that. Alright, now the sailboat has its sail. We can turn that other one on, and you see it's in between the fire. It's in a fire ring, whatever we want to call it. that's one of the humongous advantages of masking. You can put stuff over the top of things and let whatever you want to show through. If there's a house over here that we want to show through, again, we make sure we're on the mask and we paint with black, and we can let this house show through. And then we make the brush a little bit bigger. Alright, and zoom out, Control 0. So everybody else's house is on fire, but not that guy's. Alright, now the flames are obviously exaggerated flames, and normally we would, make a much smaller path, but I wanted you to really be able to see this. Now there's one more thing that I want to do. I'm going to throw this top one in the trash can because I'm going to duplicate something else. Over here in the tool palette is the smudge tool. If you click on that little finger, smudge tool is under there. I recommend to do stuff like this. I run it up around 75, and then I can just click and drag, and I can make these flames go much higher. And I love to just drag flames out like this, and you can actually branch out, have those things licking the sky. So pardon me for a few minutes while I'm distracted and building my fire. Keep going up with these. Now if you go up and you don't like the way it's looking, remember you're on a mask, so you can click on the mask and paint and hide that again if you want to. You say, oh, that's looking ridiculous. I'm just going to hide part of that. You can hide any of that you want to. So let's go back again with the smudge tool. Bring that stuff on up. Not done yet. Alright, let's go down here. And let's take that up a little bit. And we can get a bigger brush. Now, if there's something in the background here, and obviously we're getting too wide of a brush now, I'll switch so we get a little point going again. If there's something on the background and we're smudging it, and we use too big of a brush to smudge with, it's going to smudge whatever's in the background as well. So this smudge tool is great for some things, but it can get you in trouble in other ways. Alright, now, what else can we do with that? We've extended the fire quite a bit in some places. Now, what about going to Filter, Liquify? Because this is on its own layer. So we can, and we're going to have to cover some of that, but we can really have some of these flames reaching way up there. Nothing wrong with that, is there? It's a space bar on over here a little bit. And let's go and do an OK. You can't see the OK, but that's all right. So now let's do history, and let's look at before we did that and after. So we can go in there now because it's on a layer mask, and we can use the paintbrush and say we're going to kind of hide some of that stuff there. So you can tweak that any way you want. That looks like a pretty ravaging fire right now. And again, we can do a Control J and press the V key or click on the Move tool, and we can bring that down. Now notice we knocked this out so we could see the house. We knocked this out so we could see the sail. So let's go back over to this mask, which is a copy of the first mask. Turn on the brush again, and this time we'll paint with white and just fill that back in again, and it's as if it never happened. And this time let's do a Control T. Let's make this one bigger this way. I'm going to do a Control minus so I can take this down a little bit, and double click, Control 0 to bring it back up. There you go. And if we want to make the flames in the foreground look a bit different, you know, we can also stretch them individually because they are also on their own layer. So if I go back to the Liquify, I'm only going to see this newest layer. So let's go to Filter, Liquify, and I'm going to take this one up further. Take all these up. And move down here. Oh, I'm all the way. Liquify. What an amazing tool. Take these. Alright. Let's click OK. So now the fire from down there is quite a bit different than the fire that's up there. This, you know, it's kind of running together now with the other one because it's going so high. So what we can do is Control T, right click, and say flip horizontal. So then the pattern's different, and we can also spread it out more so it doesn't just line up perfectly with the other one. And then double click. We got a wild piece coming up there. Let's go to this mask and paint with black. Wrong mask, obviously. There we go. Let's straighten that out. I think you should probably see the power that's there with fire. It can be a lot of fun. Now, I'm going to throw these away real quick and just show you, again with the pen tool. And we're just going to make a fire right there. So, filter, render, flame, and this time I see that's a shorter path, so we've got this, and we can adjust the, let's go up here, removes loops, angle. We can change the angle, and you see how it flipped over. Let's try, it's hard to get that just so. Let's just see what this looks like. Well, that's wrong, isn't it? Let's do Control Z and filter, render, flame. And this time we'll take the angle back over. And remember, we can turn that angle. Let me see what that, no, we're going to go back over there. We can take that and move it. Well, that boat just got whacked, didn't it? We can move the flames however we want to. And if we want to get rid of some of that base, remember we just paint along that. I should have put that on its own layer. That's my bad. I'm going to click here and shift click down there. So now just part of the sail is on fire there. I started to say we could kind of like where the flames go. Obviously the flames are going to go upward. They're not going to go off at an angle. But anywho, I'm going to bring some of that back. We're just going to have that right there in flames. And then we get rid of that. Remember, get rid of that path. And now that's gone. So we just have a fire on the front of the boat. Now you can do this, let's say, and it was mentioned to me putting a fire in footprints. You just put a path in one footprint and put the flame on that you like, and then you start making copies. Then you put that flame wherever you want to. And if you want it to look slightly different, you do Control T and make it smaller, larger. And remember, we can really change this with this. I probably would prefer to do it with the Liquify tool, because we can really show, you need a pretty good sized brush, but you can really shove the flames around any way you want to. You can really make things very interesting in a hurry. So that's where we did the masking. Let's go over here with the brush and need to paint with white. Fill that right back in. Made a nice flame that way. Alright, hopefully you get it with the fire. We've talked about that long enough. Okay, once again we have the folders over here. To put a folder in, let me just show you this real quick, because this is pretty important. This allows us to group layers. Now, a while ago I showed you lots of stuff that we were going to do with this deer. So here, if I click on that, these are the layers that I created to make the fog. Okay. Now, if I show you, for example, if I click on this, it shows you the snow image. Now, this is if you do presentations for anybody, or on any occasion to do a presentation, you don't want them to see everything. Putting it inside of a group is a great way to do it. And let me just show you real quickly how this works. I'm going to just throw that, whoops, don't want to throw that away. I'm going to click on a new group, which puts it up here. I'm going to call that present. And I'm going to take all of the layers that made up the fog, which are these three, and I'm going to put them in present. So I can click on one, go down here and shift click to select all three. And then I'm just going to move those up, and you notice that that box is now highlighted a little bit. So now they become part of present. And if I click this little down arrow back, it hides all of them. Now there's nothing under fog anymore. Okay, because I moved them out of there. And that's what I did with speed as well. They're all there under their own little group. Okay, so I'm going to switch those back. Shift click on all of those and bring them back into fog. And I'm going to throw present in the trash. And now I've got these three, just in case I need to see what I'm going to do. Alright, creating fog. There's a couple of different ways, quick ways to make fog inside of Photoshop. One is maybe a little quicker than the other. Both are very controllable. I'm going to press D to bring up the default colors, and I'm going to just take the marquee selection tool, and I'm going to click down here at the bottom. Let's go up here. Let's say the fog is going to go this far up in the air, and Control 0 to get that back. I need to make this bigger, and I need to turn feather off. So let me do that again. Alright, so there's my layer, or my selection. So I need a new layer. I'm going to click the new layer icon, and I'm going to fill this layer and call this fog 1. I'm going to fill this with white. So I can use the keyboard shortcut, hold down Control or Command and hit backspace. It's filled with white. Control D turns the marching ants off. There's your fog. How about that? Doesn't quite look right, does it? But if we click on the mask tool or the square donut, again we turn on a brush or press the letter B. Nice big brush. Use the right bracket key, and this time make the opacity of around 50%. And we're just going to paint up here, need black, and we're just going to make this see-through. We want this line up here at the top to go away, so we paint until that top line is gone. So that's the end of the top of the fog. Alright, so now we can make this even bigger and really change the opacity of this down to around 10%. I'm just going to type in 10, and now I can start painting to make this more transparent. And I'm just clicking here and there. No rhyme nor reason, just clicking. Okay, now the one thing I definitely want to do, I want to be able to see the deer better. So I'm going to really mute the mask where the deer is. So inside the deer's body, make the brush smaller, I'm going to paint with 100%. Now it's a soft brush, so it's spilling over into the image out there. So you might want to make the brush either smaller or change the firmness of the brush. I'm not going to erase it all the way down that hard. Maybe turn it there and bring some of that in. Now, what I can do, obviously it's kind of unnatural looking. I pressed white, bring it back up, get these edges back white again. Now, softer brush to make that blend, and then I'm going to make this black, color black, and change the opacity down to 10. And paint some of that back down, a little bit of that go away, a little of this in here go away, a little bit bigger brush. It's a lot like the clouds. We just need to control how much of this is going to be visible. And a fog area, or like this, if we're out looking at wildlife, the fog isn't just usually thick pea soup. It's like this. It's scattered. You can see some places better than others. Usually there's a little see-through area here and there, and that doesn't look too bad. So if you want to, you can make another copy of this and further control that. You can even put some gray in there to make it a little darker color if you want to. So you get to decide how much of this is going to be see-through, how much is not. I'm going to cover some of this. I'm going to switch back to white. Bring an area of the deer, some fog back over the top of it, like that. Alright, so let's say that's all wonderful. What about changing this image into a snow covered scene? So let's do a Control J to make a copy of this whole image. Everything else we're just going to ignore. Alright, so we've got a copy and the original. We're going to go to Image, we're going to go to Adjustments, and we're going to go down to Replace Color. Now, the trick with replace color is selecting the area you want to affect by another color. And a lot of times I like to just randomly click and see the pattern inside. This tells you how much is being selected. If I change color right now, that's the only color that's going to get changed. So if I click back here, you see a lot of this is going to get changed. Now, if I want to add, instead of just clicking and seeing, okay, there's some, click down here, okay, there's some, click down here, there's hardly any. If I want to click and get some area, I can hold down my Shift key and select even more. Now, this is quite a bit. The other thing that we can do is click and sample once like that and bring the fuzziness up, which starts including more and more and more of the image, which is, I think, a really good place to start. I'm going to shift click over here. Now that added a little too much. Let's drag that down. I'm going to click down here again, maybe click here, and let's bring the slider over. Let's see what we get there. Now I'm going to magically turn this into snow by doing nothing more than changing the lightness. It sampled the color brown. We don't care about that. We're going to take lightness all the way to the right. And you see what happens in the image. So, not real great right now. We see the brown color that's kind of coming into the deer. It's kind of a pale looking snow. So let's hold down the Alt key and click Reset. Alt or Option on a Mac. And let's try it again. Let's click over here and let's shift click to select a little bit more. I'm still holding down Shift. That's getting the deer. Now what I can do is go over here to the eyedropper and say I want to eliminate this color. So if I click on that, it minuses some colors. So if I click on that, you see it deselected some, but it's still getting a lot of the deer and deselecting other colors. And the reason for that, there's so many similarities in this image between the background and some in the foreground, the color of the deer. So it's really having a hard time figuring out what I want. So let's try again. This time I'm going to click on the Add Sample, and let's try clicking here, and it's going to keep adding to the selection as I click. Now that's a lot, but let's see what happens. So we got quite a bit that's selected. Now don't worry that the deer has white. That's not a problem, because remember, we can make a mask and all is good. So if we move the hue and saturation, you're really not going to see any difference, because this is 100%. Basically means we've whited it out. All the detail is gone once we do that. We can still go in here and shift click and get more. Let's do the minus eyedropper and see if we can get a little bit less, and it took out way too much. Holding down the Shift key, let's reset this, because sometimes it just gets all gommed up. Alright, let's take fuzziness down and let's click in here. Now I'll tell you, the first time I did this, it selected it perfectly. So you just never know what you're going to get by doing this. So we're going to, don't want to minus. I'm just going to click on the regular brush or eyedropper and click here, and we got that going on. Let's bring that eyedropper up, and let's turn the whiteness all the way up. I don't dislike that. Let's bring that up a little bit more. Alright, I'm going to reset it. I want to try it one more time here. Take that back down on the fuzziness. Shift click back here. Nope, that's not really what I want. That's really going to white it out. Watch this. Not cool. Okay, let's do a minus, and let's try to take some off this tree. That's kind of sickly. I'm going to reset it again, holding down the Alt or Option key, and reset the fuzziness down. You don't want localized color cluster usually either, so click the regular eyedropper. Sampling the green first, and I like that selection there. That's not bad. I'm going to click OK. And we've got the good layer below it, remember? So I'm going to put a mask on this copy, so the square donut, and I'm going to paint with black on the deer to get rid of this stuff that's over here, okay? So let's change this to 100% and start getting rid of all the snow that's on our deer. And I'm not going to take the time to get this perfect because I've already taken too much time working on selecting the right color. So let's make that smaller. Oops, went too far there. Switch to white. Switch back to black with the X key. And a little bit smaller brush. Shift click there. So we're going to say that's awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm going to change the hardness of that so I can get the back here a little bit without going too far too fast. And I went a little bit too far, so switch to white, make this bigger, and make this smaller, and kind of take that down a little bit. And I think I left some of the snow around here. Now we're cooking. So now we have snow on our image, and you can control that better. You certainly can. I can also select this part of the layer and do a levels and make that white a little whiter yet. If I want to pop that a little bit, really won't affect the deer much, whitens it a little bit, but again, that created a mask which allows us to get rid of any lightning it did on the deer, so we can quickly do away with that. And again, the snow got whitened and so forth. Now if the tree looks weird because there's snow going down the trunk, here's where the snow is. We can change the opacity a little bit and whack that snow off the tree here and there, wherever tree should look a little more natural, I think, than having snow packed all over it. But that should give you the idea. Again, we can drop the opacity of that layer if we think we've gone too far. That's the benefit of all of these great layers. We can do all these fun things with them. So let's just put these in a group so we don't have to mess with that. So I'm going to click on this and click group folder here, and I'm just going to leave group 1 on there. I can double click it and name it. I'm going to put peas in there. So now I can just click and drag and drop that right on there. Notice it kicked it over to the side, indicating that it's inside that folder. Do the same thing with that one. Now if I turn that folder off, you can no longer see them. Cool. All right, let's go to the speed and let's do the Control J again. Get a new copy of the background layer. Is this time we're going to, and I'm going to turn the snow off. We're going to make this deer look like it's the fastest deer in the world. And here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to make a quick selection around the deer. And when I say quick, yep, it's going to be quick. Because in this case, it really doesn't need to be accurate. All right, refine edge, and under refine edge, let's change this to on white, and because it can't see it at all if it's on the other layer with the copy. So I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to paint. Now it's going to look terrible. Don't worry, because the background and the foreground are so similar. It just doesn't know what to do, so it helps, but it's a long way from perfection. We let go. So you see, a lot of our deer went away, and that's okay. It helped. That's what it's all about. All right, I'm going to let's try the sharp or the smart radius here a little bit. Yeah, that's not really going to help us much. We want this to be on a new layer with layer mask. I'm going to click OK. So now let's turn this background off, and you can see what the deer looks like. The stuff that's missing is not really missing, it's only masked. So if I paint with white, turn on the brush tool, and I'm bringing the deer back, right? And that's got most of the deer. It's not important that we get this perfect, like I said. I wasn't too worried about it. Press X to change the color, and we'll start cleaning some of this stuff up. I'll quickly show you what we're going to do. Obviously, we just paint in here to get rid of this stuff, because this much garbage would definitely change what we're going to do. Get rid of that back there, and press X again to kind of bring some more of that back. Alright, we're going to say that's wonderful. Now I'm going to apply this layer mask, because I'm going to say this is perfect and I don't need it anymore. So with it selected, I right click and say apply layer mask. So now it's a deer on its own layer. Now there's our background turned back on. Now, having that layer, I'm going to blur this so it looks like there's motion involved. So I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Motion Blur. Now that isn't going to help. This needs to be 0. And then you see the blur where it's going. We can make it a huge amount of blur or a little bit of blur. Let's make it quite a bit of blur. Do we want it to come off the body a bit? So we click OK, and now I'm going to move this a little bit with the Move tool. So you can see the general shape of the deer. Now if I hold down my Shift key, or sorry, my Control key, if I had selected the deer to begin with, I could easily bring the deer back and just have the blur. I'm going to go ahead and click on the mask icon again, paint with the brush with black, and just make the blur go off of the deer. Bigger brush. And I think you can see what's going on. Deer's got a blur going off there, and we can do a Control J, make it even more. If we want to subdue this on the leg, click on this mask and kind of paint that back away there. Out through here a little bit, leave some of that, because this is the fastest deer in the world. And let's paint on that one a little bit there too. And if we want to create another one, we can do that as well. Control J. And now we're going to do a Control T and take that out a lot further. And with the edges, I'm going to really mask it with a bigger brush. And let's change this. So we kind of make that disappear a little bit. Let me undo that real quick because that brush is a little hard. Soften that up. Soften this up. And again, we need to, any telltale blur on the body here, we need to kill that. Now you have the fastest deer in the world. Alright, hopefully you found this interesting to be able to create the clouds, to be able to create the fire. I think it's a lot of fun to experiment with those things. Obviously the fire is going to be more of a special thing. Clouds come in handy, and a lot of different images. It's a matter of using a nice soft brush and vary the intensity of the white paint as you put it on. Make sure you use lots of layers to be able to control it properly. That's one of the big things. And then coming over to our deer image, you saw how to make the fog, and you saw how to make the speed, and you saw how to make the snow as well. So hopefully you found this interesting, and you'll apply some of it, at least experiment with it, because if you do the exercise for this, you're really going to learn a lot more about masks than you have so far. Layer masks really can turn us loose with these things, just like letting that sailboat show through those flames, or the single house. We can control everything in the image as long as items are on their own layer. We can put a mask on it and have our way with it. Alright? Let me know if you have any questions. I look forward to that. Send me some more challenges so I can dig a little bit and come up with some things to do just like these. Talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.